Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final Freedom Friday of 2021. I'm here with one of my besties. Oh my gosh. Lily Kessler. Oh, woman. Yeah. She and I have been circling around each other since the beginning, since I just had celebrated my 7-year anniversary is around the time that you were first getting started. In Zionsville.
It's when I first met you.
Around the corner from me.
It was, and look what you have developed. It's incredible.
Oh, both of us. So this is like really perfectly full circle timely. And in particular, the topic today about nourishing our hearts. So before we started, Lily and I were kind of powwowing around Disney princess songs. And she had never heard the new song from Frozen 2, Show Yourself, which I will definitely put in the comments because if you haven't seen Frozen 2, the concept of it is kind of the backstory of Frozen, where Elsa gets to tap into where do these powers come from? What does it say about what her purpose is and who she truly is and where she's going, what her destiny is. And as part of opening up into all that, they also had to step into kind of this deeper, darker shadow truth about their past, and moving through that is what allows them both, actually, not just Elsa, but Anna as well, to step into what is her destiny. It's not to play second fiddle.
Right.
To Anna to Elsa. So what we're really dancing around here in Disney princess talk is what does it really mean to follow your heart, to nourish your heart? And it's no small thing, it takes immense courage, immense compassion to move from this space into this space. But once you start to do it, you don't have a choice. You can't go back. And when once you found and discovered that alignment and started living from that space, what happens is when you are out of alignment with that, your whole being is going to be screaming at you like, hello, no, trying to guide you to get back into that heart-based alignment. So before I pass it off to you, I just want to say briefly that from the Chinese medicine perspective, like when I talk about heart, I'm talking about heart at every level. So the organ of our heart is the reservoir, the channel for our spirit, the portal for our spirit. So all of the things, when we think about like a heart-centered life, that's necessary to life itself. So like, from a Western perspective, we tend to focus more on cardiovascular health and looking at all the different factors related to cholesterol and family history and all that stuff. It's really not the biggest picture. The biggest picture has to do with how we're aligning with spirit. So how we're connecting with spirit. So what we're talking about today is so important for living more fully and connected in life, but also so that you can live healthier and happier. So I would love to hear from you, because one of the inspirations for having this conversation today is when you began transforming your practice, which, by the way, like that's part of what both of us have done is like living and connecting, which has been something we've talked about over the past few Freedom Fridays, living and connecting to practice. And then to the point where you've created something that you're putting out into the world that really is your heart. And when you do that, there's even a higher level of alignment where it's like, those folks that have been with me for 7 years know that this practice has transformed and continues to transform because it has to. It has to, because it's a spirit heart-based practice. It's not like I get to some level and it's like, okay, this is what I do, and here's the cookie cutter. It doesn't work that way. So when you stepped beyond, when you bloomed beyond living life, and you opened Nourished Heart. So I'd love to hear what that experience has been like for you, and what you have to say about living from that heart space.
If it kind of goes back to, I spent 16 years of my life teaching elementary school. And in that time, I was introduced to yoga, and I started teaching in the school. And I had a little girl named Anna Rose come up to me on our last day of school, and she handed me a shell. And she said, when you open your yoga studio, I want you to have the shell in the yoga studio because it's important to me. And I thanked her, and I was like, I have no plans to open a yoga studio. I have no funds, no nothing. Like, this is not what I'm going to do, of course. A year later, I had a studio.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I made a big jump. I moved from Washington, D.C. area into here, Scienceville. But when I opened like Nourished Blooming Life, my first studio, it was a really wonderful like eye opener of what I was capable of. And in that was moving from that knowingness to that understanding of the myth of hierarchy. And also looking at what is yoga, how to live authentically, what is this, and, in the yoga world is plagued, unfortunately, like by guru complexes and things along those lines. And I was inundated with lots of, different players in the game in that larger studio space where all of a sudden I had like 2,000 square feet and I had 20 teachers and we were going on like global trips and we were doing teacher trainings, which was the reason for me opening, was wanting to, I was fascinated by our human story. And that really drew me to explore yoga in deeper ways. What makes us tick? Like what is the why behind the how? What is the authenticity or the foundation of what we do, how we do it? And also in that, this beautiful equanimity of what it means to be in community, in synergy within our own, like the home of our heart. But in the reality of the world of maintaining that brick and mortar business, I found myself more and more speaking the words, but not living the alignment. And I found I was more in like survival mode because I had people that I needed to pay. I had rent to pay. All of this world stuff all of a sudden got, like I allowed it to get in between me and my relationship with my practice. And so I was almost like maintaining. And whenever I went to, you were a massive practitioner, like for my health at that time. But also I was having abnormal test results. I had cancer scares, all of these things. I knew it came from a place of stress and not being in alignment with myself. And so the gift of COVID was the massive like realization of I cannot do this for 1 second longer. And I'm not willing to just throw away all of the work I've done, because we developed a really beautiful community at the same time. That was my motivation to keep going in the thick of my stuff. And I fell in love with those people who were brave enough to step out of their own comfort zones, who were brave enough also to face their families when their families were like, well, the yoga, is that a religion? Is that against your religion? Is that against us? It was really fascinating, the walls that people have up and the stereotypes. And so like knowing people's personal stories of their own transformations with practice, but also like what they were facing, because it was pushing against or questioning their daily norms. It was questioning their labels. It was almost like, I love you so much, don't ever change, which is the greatest poison and lie in our world, right? That is mostly said by people that we love. Yeah. And so I wanted to keep that brave, gorgeous, humble community together. And I literally donated it to a student of mine who was also a teacher of mine as well, because she could do all of the day-to-day stuff that I was no longer willing to do. And so through meditation, I was like having a big breakup with yoga in general. Like, who am I in this? I don't like who I am in this. I feel like there's such a greater like reservoir of passion for me. I don't know what that is. And so I'm in this free fall. I like Tom Petty's Free Fallin' is like the theme song of my life right now. And I feel like, belief keeps us safe, but faith is alive. Faith is the unknown. And so I wanted to have that deeper relationship with spirit source, all of the names of God that I've experimented with, played around with, and then removed the label and just felt more energy, health, and authenticity coming through me when I shed that label. And so again, going back a little bit to like that meditation that I had, it was like this big, like physical download. Call this person now, get this new space. And a part of me is like, I don't want to go back into teacher training. I want to break up with yoga. And spirit's like, no, you're not. And so I found a place that wasn't going to wake me up at 2 a.m. worried about rent or worried about making sure everybody else is okay. I found my nook, and I went straight back to the reason why I opened up my first studio in the first place. And it is this message, my deep and my research. I love the history of this tradition, because again, it's our human story. It's the encompassing of so many different philosophies and current religions in our world. And so that was really important to me, because I've had so much, I was kicked out of my church. I've had a lot of trauma from religion by asking questions and also calling out authority figures of like, you're speaking separation. You're not speaking love. You're not speaking truth. And even like that, those younger versions of me who are terrified to actually lean in and speak, I'm so proud of her, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And even though I was shunned from my community for saying that, or by calling out our minister, it took me years, and I'm still decades later, like in recovery of that. But now it's no longer the separation or like that wound. It is my sense of strength and source that's coming from, of like, how do I teach these concepts in a way that is all inclusive for everybody who's coming to our table?
Right.
And in that alone, that there is seeing that I don't know, like having these conversations in my training where people can come together as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how are you really? Like, how are you really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do you really want to know? Because it's gonna, you know, and that's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are shedding their stuff by the foundation of the history and the conversations that result from that, and also the methodology and all that stuff that goes with it, it starts from that source of like, what energetic alignment do you find yourself in right now? And it's always transforming. It's always shifting. We always are in the flux of growing and shedding our layers along the way, again and again and again and again. And so seeing folks, you know, that are so brave to explore their labels and to explore their beliefs that have held them back from nourishing their own hearts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy if I'm not stressed out, if I'm not 100% productive 24 hours a day, that I'm not like, you know, queen mother of my household, or like, you know, steward of my neighborhoods. You know, all of these false pretenses that people get to explore. And there's a lot of anger that comes up, which is a part of it.
Yeah.
And we bring in the silliness of dancing, even to like,
Yeah.
I don't know my Disney songs. I don't even watch Disney. Like, I don't know, but some of these things have like hit lately, or like, again, like I just, like we mentioned before this, like there's some high frequency there.
Yeah.
Like these messages of let it go, of who cares, of what is authority,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at like how we have held ourselves back within our own hearts. And when we can, you know, in some ways, when I don't know, like there is no right way to find growth. And oftentimes growth comes from being, you know, coming face to face with our shadow self, which is also our richest, most beautiful, most potent, most powerful, most raw. And why did that ever have to be, you know, hid away to fit in a certain like particular, you know, in a box, so to speak? And so I love, you know, just even this past weekend, we had folks get together, and people, you know, and they're pushed out of their comfort zones, which we all need to be, to figure out who we are and to figure out what our boundaries are and such. But even just seeing like women weep because who am I to do this? I'm not perfect at this. Perfectionism is another thing we get to like bury forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is you're up against another label. And so when we remove that label, we have more access to your true heart space.
Yeah.
And that alone is glorious.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, the power and the magic of what the heart has to offer is that being the house of spirit, it is like our highest spiritual guide. It is our highest self. So it is really holding that space of the highest level of compassion and non-duality. So like, it feels to me what you're describing is like you have intentionally created like this reservoir of heart, so people can step in and bare their hearts, like all sides of what wants to come out, because it's safe, because in truth, that's what the heart has to offer, is that safety to be able, because it's all love. all of it is love. That's the alchemy of the heart. It's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't see like the shadow side, the light side. It's like, it's all part of the biggest picture of unconditional love. So to intentionally create that is, it's so important, because what's been happening, you know, in our society is the extremes that we're being pushed to are meant to wake us up to this whole duality thing is baloney.
Yeah.
But we have to address that, because it's obviously embedded and ingrained in the patterns and all the energies. So I love that you are playing with it, right? I mean, that just creating the sacred space for it, but then like playing with, how can we move it out? How can we dance it out? How can we see
scream it out?
Scream it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. Like, we having to first examine the soup in which we swim. Let's be very, very clear as much as we can be in this murkiness.
Yeah.
And then from there, you know, because these things that have once brought us to our knees have no power over us. Like, we maybe not even enter our conscious or even subconscious anymore, because we've learned that lesson, we've moved beyond it, and now we're ready for different layers of ourselves to emerge. But yeah, it's fascinating again and again of like, who we think we are can be our biggest prison as well, if we identify with that and we're like, I am this particular way. And there is a foundation which we truly are, and that is our alignment. But how can we, you know, dance along the edges what else is there? And that's also the beauty of yoga, sthira sukham, that is effort and ease. It's pushing your boundaries. It's finding a new sweet spot. Again and again.
Again and again and again. I love that. Yeah, because, you know, the purpose of this is to grow, to continue to grow, to continue to grow, to continue to grow. That's the heart wants us to continue to grow. And that does mean that like, you are going to be pushed, you know, once you open up to that space, it's like, you're going to see it within yourself, and then also seeing it within others. So that's a place too. I'm sure that's something that comes out in your practice is, you know, it's like, that person did this and that and that, you know, and it's really easy to really lose the connection of what the higher message is for you. There's a practice that I've been playing with of really turning anything that I'm seeing in my reality back to me. And like, you know, if I'm seeing something in somebody else, using the words and speaking them to myself, like, I'm sorry you feel like the only answer here is anger, you know, these kinds of things of just really consciously bringing all this stuff to the surface.
And that's also like the practice, and in the yoga, it's the same, right? That living in namaste. You know, these people that can be so easy to like point at and be like, you did this, or, you know, like especially figures that we see around us that in leadership positions or even in our own households and such. So it doesn't matter where, but like, how can we examine like, where does that, if I'm identifying something that is triggering me, that means I'm giving my power, and I'm giving my power to that situation and to that story. And then also my perception could be skewed in that. So why, I don't know, it's my practice is I love what you just said, because it's honing your power back, right? And also being, what other parts of myself am I not looking at, because I have this wobble, I'm not aligned when there's this, and there can be other things, right? It's the dance of boundaries, communication. You were talking a lot about like this, how the heart and the throat, this seat of like intuition yet manifestation, the clarity in which our words are spoken and then received. That's a really tricky thing in general as well. And so just how can I shed more discernment within myself and therefore others, and not take things on? Like, wow, okay. Don't need that.
And there was something you had said earlier that I think was really powerful. Like, it, you know, sometimes the heart's going to speak to you in lots of different ways. And sometimes it's subtle and quiet, and sometimes it's really not. And when it's really, really a powerful, strong thing, and this can happen anyway, and it can happen sometimes when we haven't been listening, something will happen like a thunderclap. It'll just be like,
you know,
boom. It's like, just like you said, like, that's it. That's it. We're done. And it's seizing all of those little opportunities, the big little ones and the big ones, because there's so much power in that. When you have those thunderclap heart moments, it's like, there's a lot of energy, with the manifestation. So you have like, there's a different feeling versus the kind of quieter, like, oh, like, we're just kind of like, we're waking up versus the like, we're doing this.
With clarity comes a massive responsibility to be able to change. And that takes so much courage. And that's also where that aspect of love comes from. Love, you know, and you speak about it as well, and also in different ways of exploring the energy of love and fear. And so that energy of love, even though like I know I'm going to be like, you know, tearing a lot of things apart right now because it has to happen, because this is my new clarity. And that clarity, especially from that heart-centered space, is how I believe how source speaks to us and how source moves in the world if we are brave enough to lean in and to make these brave changes. So it's like the universe is demanding us to change over and over and over and over and over again, and root down deep as well. So it's both and.
Yes, because we are earthbound beings and we need to be grounded and rooted in the process of our growth.
Right.
And part of that too, you guys, and why I'm having these conversations is we don't exist in isolation. You know, I know that it's in some ways, yes, on the spiritual journey, you're alone, but not lonely, but we're all here in connection and collaboration. All of us are going through these parallel journeys together, and we're supporting each other. So when you become inspired by, you know, what we're saying here today, or you attend her workshop, whatever you do, and that gets sparked, we are all growing and transforming together. And the powerful thing about this too, I had this even happen today with a circumstance that was particularly sticky, and I wasn't really sure there was, you know, it's pretty clear. I'm like, I'm not sure I can say anything that's really going to shift this. But I did some work on my own. And while I was doing that work on my own, I went and turned on my phone, and I got a very loving text message from the person that I was like, it's like, it is true how connected we are, and how the work really does begin in here, and how we are changing the world with every little shift that we're making from within our own hearts.
I love that. That's like where the mind goes, prana flows, you know, and that discernment of you're not ready to lean in into maybe ground that's not fertile to be received, you know, to receive what you have to say. And I just love that you had that perhaps intention, and it just happened anyway, like the manifestation was already received, because energy is a real thing. Very much. So like really paying attention to like, what am I putting my thoughts into? Who am I thinking about, and how am I thinking about them? It is absolutely received.
Yes. So really important things to reflect on as we head into the end of 2021. So, you know, a lot of times we get too forward focused and just think, 2022, let's just get there. Let's just be done with this. No, this is a really tender time that we have available to us for these next couple of weeks to really lean in and do some deeper level heart-based reflection on what the past year has brought for you, what you wish to open to. And one of the invitations that I was thinking about today is really to do this in community and connection, like, you know, do it on your own, but also to, you know, with loving heart-based beings to share, because there's something transformative that happens when you take these reflections and you bring it to another level. I want to be clear that this isn't about like, we need an action plan and a 10-step process. Or no, this is just like, this is kind of like, wow, like, let's just through the lens of love, even through, you know, the challenging things, reflect on everything that's happened, and and what the next year might bring. So
and you've mentioned before, like how everything is perfect. And that has been a lesson of mine and a practice of mine for years now.
yeah,
Like it's perfect. And so not to throw away like, goodbye 2021, you
Yeah.
suck too. Like, let's not have that. Let's see what else we have learned from that, and the motivation or clarity that was developed from this time of like, now what?
Yes.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
just pure gratitude.
Beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful.
thank you.
Any final words before we close today?
Gosh. No.
I think that
I
was
just
good.
think I want just more, and thank you for just also opening up the invitation again for community, and that there's no separation, and that we just bring our gifts and bring our full hearts to the table when we meet in this community and beyond, because and that I see as like that sacred geometry of like the flower of life.
Yeah,
When
it's so
we-
funny. I almost
yeah.
wore my Flower of Life shirt. I have a Flower of
You
Life
do,
back
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, infinitely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yes, thank
Well,
you.
thank you, everybody. And yes, enjoy the next couple of weeks and really take this opportunity to dive deep and connect into that heart space. Bye.
Bye.